Traditional native warfare was very different than what you see in the Pequot War. Indian people, Mohegan Indian people, Narragansett people, none of them had any idea what they were getting into.
May 26, 1637. In almost complete darkness, just before dawn, the English forces and their native allies, commanded by John Underhill and John Mason, quietly prepared to attack the Pequot fort at Mystic. Inside, hundreds of men, women, and children lay sleeping, about 1/3 of the entire Pequot tribe.
You had a circular palisade, a wall that was built by tree stumps laid in a circle and pointing upwards and sharpened at the top. And that had 2 entrances at each side of the circle where the walls kind of overlapped each other, and there'd be just a space, wide enough for a person to get through.
The English troops rose and they commended themselves to God. And then they moved toward this palisaded fort. What they counted on more than anything was the element of surprise. If they could get in without being detected, they could achieve their goal of killing the inhabitants and taking away whatever spoils there were for themselves. Mason divided the forces up, and they went to the 2 entrances, and they found that the Indians had covered them with brush. They pulled the brush out of the way, and they went inside and started entering wigwams and slashing whatever was there. What was there, of course, were women and children and men.
They met with very stiff resistance from the Pequot warriors. John Mason felt that the resistance was too fierce. And he realized that they could not kill everybody by hand-to-hand fighting.
So he ran inside, and he got a torch out of one of the fires, and he came out and he yelled, "We must burn them."
The English intent was not originally to burn the fort because they wanted to save the plunder. But Underhill and Mason were professional soldiers. They must have had a plan B. And that plan was to set fire to the fort, retreat outside the fort to prevent anyone from escaping.
The Englishmen ran outside, and the Indians had a choice to make. Stay and die a death under fire, or try to get out. Those that tried to get out were either killed by the English, and if they got through that line behind them, there was a line of Mohicans who finished the rest off. It was horrible.
The English themselves described this battle in very frightening terms. The destruction, the burning, the killing. There were so many people lying on the ground, Pequot men, women, and children, that the English couldn't even walk without stepping on bodies.
The scene was so shocking that even some of the English began to ask if, as Christians, they ought to show some mercy. But Captain Underhill pointed to the Old Testament and said that God wanted those who were sinners, heathen, to suffer, he said, the terriblest death that may be, and that the innocent needed to suffer along with the guilty.
Even though the Narragansett and Mohegan had no love lost for the Pequots, they were absolutely shocked by the brutality that the English displayed to attack elderly men and women, or women and children, women with nursing children. They went up and threw their hands up and said, "Mock it, mock it. It's too much." They were distraught is not too strong a word.
Hundreds of people lay dead. And it was a moment that changed everything for the English and the Indians. Not just for that day, but from that day forward.